Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the command center of Luna Base Alpha and stared at the empty holographic display where 12,000 human ships should have been sending signals back to Earth. The massive screen showed nothing but cold stars and distant galaxies. 3 months had passed since the largest fleet in human history had jumped into hyperspace toward the Vega system. Not one ship had returned. Not one message had come through the quantum communication arrays. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the duty roster on his desk. 2 million names. 2 million souls who had volunteered to face the alien threat that called itself the Hegemony Collective. The best pilots humanity had ever trained, the smartest scientists, the bravest soldiers, all gone into the void without a trace. The war had started with a simple message broadcast across every human world 6 months ago. The aliens had spoken in perfect English through every communication device on Earth, Mars, Jupiter Station, and the outer colonies. Their words had been clear and terrifying. Surrender your species to serve as workers in our empire or watch your worlds burn. You have 1 year to decide. Captain Lisa Hayes had led the first diplomatic mission to make contact with these aliens. She had taken a small fleet of 30 ships to the coordinates the hegemony had provided. The meeting had lasted 3 days. Lisa had tried everything: trade agreements, peaceful coexistence, shared technology. The aliens had refused every offer. They wanted only one thing: complete surrender of the human race. When Lisa returned with news of the failed negotiations, Fleet Commander Steve Parker had stepped forward. Steve was a veteran of the border conflicts with pirates in the Outer Rim. He had never lost a battle. He had volunteered to lead the response fleet, 12,000 ships, every available warship in human space, carriers loaded with fighter craft, battleships with enough firepower to crack planets, support vessels carrying supplies for a long campaign. The day they launched had been the most hopeful day in human history. Crowds had gathered on every world to watch the fleet depart. Children had waved flags. Adults had sung the old songs about human courage. Everyone believed that Steve Parker would bring victory. Everyone believed their heroes would come home. Now Jake stared at empty space and felt the weight of an entire species on his shoulders. As the ranking officer left in the solar system, he commanded what remained of human military forces. A handful of patrol ships, some orbital defense platforms, space stations with minimal weapons. Nothing that could stop an invasion force. Dr. Amy Chen walked into the command center carrying a data pad. She had been the chief science officer assigned to the expedition fleet, but a last-minute injury had kept her on Luna Base. Now she was the only person who had studied the alien technology, samples that Lisa Hayes had brought back from the diplomatic mission. "Any word from the deep space monitoring stations?" Amy asked as she approached Jake's position. Jake shook his head. Station 7 reported some unusual energy readings near the Vega system 2 weeks ago, but then they went silent too. We sent a probe, but it will take another month to reach the area. Amy pulled up a chair and activated her data pad. The screen showed complex mathematical equations and energy pattern analysis. "I have been studying the alien technology fragments that Captain Hayes recovered. Their power systems are unlike anything we have ever seen. They use some kind of quantum field manipulation that allows them to generate massive amounts of energy from very small reactors." "How massive?" Jake asked. "Enough to power a city with a device the size of a briefcase. Their weapons technology appears to be based on the same principles. They can focus energy beams with precision we cannot match, and generate force fields that could deflect our most powerful missiles." Jake felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. "So our fleet was outgunned. Badly outgunned. But that is not what worries me most." Amy touched her data pad and brought up a new display. "I found traces of something else in the alien samples. Microscopic devices that appear to be designed for neural interface, brain-to-machine connections." "What kind of connections?" "I am not certain, but the technology suggests they can link organic minds directly to computer systems, possibly even transfer consciousness from biological brains to digital storage." Jake stared at the data on Amy's screen. The implications made him feel sick. "You think they captured our people?" It would explain the lack of debris, the lack of distress signals. If they had destroyed our fleet, we would have detected the energy signatures from such a massive battle. 12,000 ships do not simply vanish without leaving some trace. Before Jake could respond, Lieutenant Dan Brooks rushed into the command center. Dan was barely 20 years old and had been assigned to monitor deep space communications. His face was pale with excitement and fear. "Admiral, we are receiving something. It is not exactly a transmission, but the quantum arrays are detecting patterns, organized patterns that might be some kind of code." Jake followed Dan to the communications station. The displays showed waves of energy fluctuations coming from the direction of the Vega system. The patterns repeated every few minutes with slight variations. Amy studied the readouts. "This looks like the quantum signature of human neural activity, but modified somehow. Changed." "Changed how?" Jake asked. "As if human brain patterns were being processed through alien technology. Filtered and altered, but still recognizably human. In origin." Jake felt his heart racing. "Steve Parker. He is trying to send us a message." The three of them worked through the night to decode the signal patterns. The message that emerged was fragmentary and unclear, but it contained enough information to chill Jake to his bones. The fleet had not been destroyed. The crews had been taken. Their minds had been connected to alien machines. They were still alive but trapped in some kind of technological prison. As dawn broke over Luna Base Alpha, Jake realized that the war with the Hegemony Collective had not ended with the disappearance of the human fleet. It had only just begun. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, 2 million human minds were fighting a battle that no one on Earth could see, and time was running out. The alien ultimatum deadline was approaching fast, and Earth had no defenses left except the handful of ships that remained in the solar system. Jake looked out at the stars and made a decision that would determine the fate of the human race. If their people were still alive out there, then Earth would find a way to bring them home, no matter what the cost. President Maria Santos stood before the emergency session of the Global Defense Council in Geneva, while reports of civil unrest poured in from every major city on Earth. The disappearance of the fleet had shaken humanity to its core. Families of the missing soldiers demanded answers that no one could provide. Protesters filled the streets calling for immediate surrender to the Hegemony Collective. Others demanded that Earth prepare for a final battle, even though they had almost no ships left to fight with. Maria looked at the faces around the conference table. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the main screen from Luna Base Alpha. Dr. Amy Chen sat beside several other scientists who had been working around the clock to understand the alien technology. General Carlos Martinez represented what remained of Earth's ground forces. Each person in the room understood that they were facing the possible extinction of the human race. "The situation is clear," Maria began. "We have 5 months before the hegemony deadline expires. Our main fleet is gone. We have detected evidence that our people may still be alive, but we cannot reach them. We must decide whether to surrender or fight with what little we have left." General Martinez activated a holographic display showing Earth's remaining defenses. "We have 47 patrol ships scattered across the solar system, 12 orbital defense platforms around Earth, 8 around Mars. The weapons on these platforms were designed to stop asteroid impacts and pirate raids, not an invasion fleet. If the aliens send the same force that took our expedition, we cannot stop them." Dr. Amy Chen stood up and walked to another display screen. "I have been working with a team at the Antarctic Research Facility on something we call Project Lazarus. It is based on theoretical physics research that was started before the alien contact. The project involves using quantum tunneling to create weapons that can affect matter at the subatomic level." Admiral Morrison leaned forward on the communication screen. "What kind of weapons?" "Devices that can disrupt the molecular bonds that hold objects together. If we can build a working prototype, it could destroy alien ships regardless of their shield technology. But we need materials that we do not currently possess. Specifically, we need samples of the quantum field generators that power their technology." Maria felt a spark of hope for the first time in weeks. "Can you build these weapons with the alien technology samples that Captain Hayes brought back?" "The samples are too small and too damaged. We need intact alien technology," That means someone has to go back to the Vega system and retrieve it from the hegemony forces there. The room fell silent as everyone realized what Dr. Chen was suggesting. A suicide mission to alien-controlled space with only a handful of ships, and almost no chance of success. Captain Alex Turner spoke from the back of the room. Alex had been scheduled to command one of the battleship squadrons in the expedition fleet, but a training accident had left him with injuries that grounded him during the launch. He had spent the last 3 months recovering and watching helplessly as his friends and fellow officers disappeared into space. "I volunteer to lead the mission," Alex said as he walked to the front of the room. "Give me 1 ship and a crew of volunteers. We will go to Vega, find out what happened to our fleet, and bring back the technology you need." General Martinez shook his head. "Captain, we cannot spare any ships. Every vessel we have left needs to stay here to defend Earth." "What are we defending Earth with?" Alex asked. 47 patrol ships against thousands of alien warships. We both know that is not a real defense. Our only chance is to build Dr. Chen's weapons, and that requires alien technology. Maria studied Alex Turner's service record on her personal display. He had commanded deep space reconnaissance missions for 8 years. He had survived encounters with hostile alien life forms on the frontier worlds. His psychological evaluations showed exceptional resilience under pressure. If anyone could succeed on an impossible mission, it would be someone like Alex. "What would you need?" Maria asked. Alex thought for a moment. The stealth ship Nightfall. It was designed for reconnaissance missions behind enemy lines. A small crew of specialists, and complete authority to make decisions in the field without waiting for orders from Earth. Dr. Amy Chen activated her datapad and showed the room her analysis of the quantum signals they had detected. If Captain Turner is going to risk his life on this mission, he should know what we learned from decoding these transmissions. We believe that the human minds taken by the aliens are still conscious and aware. They may be trying to communicate with us, or even fighting back against their captors. Alex studied the data. So there is a chance that Commander Parker and the others are still alive and might be able to help. It is possible, but we have no way to establish direct communication. The signals are too weak and too distorted to carry complex messages. Admiral Morrison spoke from the Luna base connection. "Captain Turner, I want you to understand the reality of what you are volunteering for. The Nightfall is a good ship, but it was not designed to fight capital warships. If the aliens detect you, you will not be able to run or fight your way out." Alex nodded. "I understand, Admiral, but staying here and waiting for the invasion is not going to save anyone. At least this way we have a chance to gather intelligence and maybe find a way to help our people." President Santos looked around the room at the faces of humanity's remaining leaders. The decision she was about to make would either give Earth a fighting chance or waste precious resources on a hopeless mission. But doing nothing guaranteed defeat. "Captain Turner, you have authorization for your mission. Select your crew and prepare for departure. Dr. Chen, continue work on Project Lazarus. General Martinez, begin evacuation procedures for non-essential personnel from the major cities. If this plan fails, we need to be ready for the worst." Over the next 2 weeks, Alex assembled his crew from volunteers. Sergeant Rita Walsh from the Special Forces had trained for missions behind enemy lines. Engineer Dan Parker was the younger, brother of Fleet Commander Steve Parker, and understood alien technology better than most humans. Communications Officer Nina Reeves had worked on the original diplomatic mission and knew the alien communication protocols. Dr. Amy Chen worked day and night in the Antarctic facility to prepare the quantum weapon prototype. The device was the size of a suitcase but contained enough theoretical firepower to destroy a small moon. The problem was that it required a massive energy source to function, the kind of energy source that only existed in alien technology. As the Nightfall prepared for departure from Luna Base Alpha, Alex recorded a message for the families of Earth. "We are not going out there to die. We are going to find our people and bring them home. The fleet that disappeared may be gone, but they are not forgotten. Every person on this ship volunteers because we believe that no human being should be abandoned to alien captivity. We will find a way to rescue them, or we will find a way to make their sacrifice count." The last transmission from Earth came as the Nightfall engaged its hyperspace engines. Dr. Chen's voice carried across space with final instructions. The quantum weapon is integrated into your ship's systems. If you can interface it with alien technology, it may be able to affect their entire network. But Alex, the power feedback could destroy the Nightfall. Make sure your crew understands the risk. Alex looked at his 3 crew members as they jumped into hyperspace toward the Vega system. They were heading into the unknown to face an enemy that had already defeated the best that humanity could send against them. But they carried with them the hopes of an entire species and a weapon that might be the key to victory or destruction. The Nightfall dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Vega system, and Captain Alex Turner stared at his display screens in complete shock. The entire human expedition fleet floated in perfect formation around a massive alien structure that had not been there during the original diplomatic mission. 12,000 ships arranged in precise geometric patterns like a vast 3-dimensional mandala. Every vessel appeared intact and undamaged. "Are you seeing this?" Sergeant Rita Walsh asked from her position at the tactical station. Engineer Dan Parker worked frantically at his console. "I am scanning every ship in the fleet. No power signatures, no life support systems active, no communication signals. It is like they are all completely dead." Communications Officer Nina Reeves adjusted her equipment to scan across multiple frequencies. "I am not detecting any human life signs anywhere in the fleet, but the ships themselves show no signs of battle damage. No hull breaches, no weapon scarring. They look like they were just turned off." Alex stared at the formation of silent ships. In the center of the fleet, he could see the flagship UES Humanity's Pride, where Fleet Commander Steve Parker had made his final transmission 3 months ago. The massive battleship floated motionless with its running lights dark and its weapon systems powered down. The alien structure at the heart of the formation was unlike anything in human experience. It appeared to be constructed from a black crystalline material that bent light around its surface. The structure was roughly spherical but covered with geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. Tendrils of energy connected it to several of the closest human ships. "Dan, what do you think that thing is?" Alex asked. Dan studied his readings. "The energy patterns are consistent with the alien technology samples we studied back on Earth, but the scale is enormous. Whatever that structure is, it is generating more power than our entire fleet could produce." Rita pointed to her tactical display. "Captain, I am detecting movement. Small craft launching from the alien structure. They appear to be heading toward our position." Alex made a quick decision. "Nina, send a tight beam transmission back to Earth. Tell them we found the fleet, but something is very wrong here. Dan, prepare the stealth systems. Rita, monitor those approaching craft, but do not target them unless they show hostile intent." The alien craft were small and dart-shaped, moving with impossible speed and agility. They surrounded the Nightfall but made no aggressive moves. After several tense minutes, they simply returned to the alien structure as if they had completed some kind of inspection. "They scanned us," Dan reported, "but they did not attempt to disable our systems or board us. It is like they cataloged us and then lost interest." Alex studied the tactical display. "Maybe they do not consider one small ship a threat. Nina, can you establish communication with any of the fleet vessels?" Nina worked at her station for several minutes before shaking her head. "No response from any ship. But Captain, I am detecting some very faint signals that might be automated systems. Emergency beacons that activate when life support fails." "How many ships?" "All of them. Every ship in the fleet is broadcasting emergency signals indicating complete life support failure and crew evacuation. But there are no escape pods or lifeboats anywhere in the system." Alex felt ice forming in his stomach. 2 million people do not simply vanish without a trace. "Dan, plot a course to the Humanity's Pride. We are going aboard to investigate." The Nightfall approached the flagship using minimal power and passive sensors to avoid detection. The massive battleship looked exactly as it had when it departed Earth, except for the complete absence of any activity. No lights in the windows, no energy signatures from the engines, no signals from the communication arrays. Alex led a boarding party consisting of himself, Rita, and Dan, while Nina remained on the Nightfall to monitor for alien activity. They used magnetic docking clamps to attach to the flagship's emergency airlock. The airlock cycled normally, indicating that some automated systems were still functioning. The interior of the Humanity's Pride was eerily normal. Emergency lighting provided dim illumination throughout the corridors. The artificial gravity was still working. The air was breathable, but there were no people anywhere. Alex led the team to the bridge where Fleet Commander Steve Parker should have been directing the battle. The bridge was in perfect condition. All stations were manned, but the chairs were empty. Coffee cups sat on consoles with the liquid still warm. Personal items remained where they had been left. Data pads showed routine operational reports. Everything indicated normal activity until suddenly it did not. Dan accessed the ship's main computer and pulled up the operational logs. According to this, the ship was operating normally until exactly 14:37 ship time on the day they arrived. In this system, at that moment all human biological signatures simply disappeared from the sensors. Not dead, not evacuated, just gone. Rita examined the captain's chair where Steve Parker had been sitting. No signs of struggle, no evidence of any kind of attack or boarding action. It is like everyone just ceased to exist at the same instant. Alex moved to the communication station and accessed the final transmissions. Steve Parker's last message to Earth had been cut off in mid-sentence. The recording showed him speaking normally about engaging unknown defensive systems, and then the transmission simply ended. No explosion, no alarm, just silence. Dan, scan the ship for any kind of alien technology, something that might explain what happened here. Dan used portable scanners to examine the ship's major systems. After an hour of searching, he made a discovery in the engine room that changed everything. Microscopic alien devices were integrated into every major system throughout the ship. Not weapons or bombs, but something far more sophisticated. These devices appeared to be some kind of interface technology, Dan reported over the communication system. They have connected themselves to the ship's computer networks and life support systems. But more than that, they seem to be designed to interact with human neural tissue. Alex joined Dan in the engine room and examined the alien devices under magnification. They were beautiful in their complexity, like tiny crystalline flowers that pulsed with internal light. Neural interface technology. Dr. Chen was right. Captain, I think I understand what happened. These devices did not kill the crew. They extracted them. Somehow they removed human consciousness from biological bodies and stored it elsewhere. Rita's voice came over the communication system from the bridge. Captain, you need to see this. I found something in the ship's medical bay. Alex and Dan rushed to the medical facility where Rita had discovered a series of neural interface headsets that had not been there when the ship left Earth. The devices were clearly of alien manufacture and were connected to the ship's main computer through fiber optic cables. These were not part of the original equipment, Rita explained. Someone or something installed them after the fleet arrived in this system. Dan scanned the headsets with his portable equipment. The technology is identical to the microscopic devices throughout the ship, but these are designed for direct human interface, voluntary interface. Alex felt pieces of a terrible puzzle falling into place. They did not take our people by force. Somehow they convinced them to cooperate, to put on these headsets willingly. But why would anyone agree to that? Maybe they had no choice. Maybe the aliens threatened to destroy the fleet unless the crews cooperated. Nina's voice crackled over the communication system from the Nightfall. Captain, you need to return to the ship immediately. I am detecting massive energy buildups throughout the alien structure. Something big is about to happen. As Alex and his team rushed back to their ship, Dan continued scanning the alien devices they had found. Captain, I am detecting quantum entanglement signatures in these neural interface systems. They are connected to something far beyond this star system. The consciousness of our people may not even be in local space. Alex felt the weight of 2 million lives pressing down on him as the Nightfall disengaged from the flagship and moved to a safe distance. They had found the fleet, but their discovery only deepened the mystery. Somewhere in the vast alien network that spanned the galaxy, the minds of Earth's greatest heroes were trapped in a technological prison, that human science could barely comprehend. The question now was whether those minds were still fighting back against their captors, and whether there was any way for a single small ship to mount a rescue mission across interstellar space. Captain Alex Turner guided the Nightfall closer to the massive alien structure at the center of the fleet formation, while his crew worked to understand the technology they had discovered. The crystalline construct pulsed with internal energy that created patterns too complex for human eyes to follow. As they approached, sections of the structure became transparent, revealing chambers filled with swirling light and geometric forms that defied physics. Engineer Dan Parker monitored the alien neural interface devices they had recovered from the Humanity's Pride. The quantum entanglement signatures were growing stronger as they moved closer to the structure. "Captain, these devices are definitely connected to whatever is inside that thing. The quantum field interactions are off the charts." Communications Officer Nina Reeves had been working to decode the faint signals they had detected earlier. "I think I have found something. The quantum patterns are not random. They contain information structures that look like human neural activity, but processed through alien technology." Sergeant Rita Walsh studied the tactical implications of their situation. "Captain, if our people are inside that structure, we need to find a way to get them out, but I am not seeing any obvious access points or docking facilities." Alex made a decision that he knew could cost them all their lives. "Dan, prepare the quantum weapon that Dr. Chen installed. If we are going to attempt contact with that structure, we need to be ready for anything. Nina, try to establish some kind of communication link using the alien interface devices." Nina connected one of the neural headsets to the Nightfall's communication array and began transmitting on the frequencies that the alien devices used. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then the structure began to respond. Sections of the crystalline surface shifted and opened, revealing a docking bay that was clearly designed for human ships. "They are inviting us inside," Nina reported. "The docking bay appears to be pressurized and suitable for human life support." Alex hesitated. Everything about the situation suggested a trap. But if their mission was to rescue the fleet or gather intelligence about alien technology, they had to take the risk. "All right, we are going in, but everyone stays armed and ready to fight our way out." The Nightfall entered the alien structure through the docking bay. As soon as they were inside, the opening sealed behind them with a sound like crystalline chimes. The bay was enormous, large enough to hold hundreds of ships. Along the walls, they could see alcoves containing vessels from dozens of different species. None of them appeared to be human. As the crew prepared to disembark, the structure around them began to change. The walls became transparent, revealing vast chambers filled with floating geometric forms and streams of light that moved like living things. In the distance, they could see what appeared to be organic shapes suspended in columns of energy. "Those are people," Rita said, pointing to the distant forms, or what used to be people from various species. Dan scanned the area with his portable equipment. "The quantum signatures indicate conscious activity. Those forms are not dead. They are some kind of preserved consciousness existing in an artificial matrix." Alex led his team deeper into the structure through corridors that adjusted their size and shape as they walked. The walls displayed images and symbols from countless alien civilizations, star maps showing the expansion of something across the galaxy over thousands of years, technical diagrams of consciousness transfer technology, historical records of conquered worlds and absorbed species. "This is not just a military installation," Nina observed. "It is a library, a collection of every species the hegemony has ever encountered." They entered a vast chamber where millions of consciousness containers floated in ordered rows. Each container held the preserved mind of a being from somewhere in the galaxy. The scale was overwhelming. Civilizations' worth of knowledge and experience, stored like books on shelves. In the center of the chamber, they found what they were looking for: a section containing containers that pulsed with familiar quantum signatures, human consciousness patterns. 2 million minds from the expedition fleet suspended in alien technology. As Alex approached the human section, one of the containers began to glow more brightly. The quantum patterns intensified, and suddenly Nina's communication equipment activated. A voice spoke through the alien interface devices. distorted and modified by the technology, but unmistakably human. Alex Turner. I hoped someone would come looking for us. Alex recognized the voice despite the electronic distortion. Steve Parker. Thank God you are alive. Alive is a relative term in this place. We exist as patterns of information in their network. But Alex, we have learned things that will change everything humanity knows about this war. The consciousness of Fleet Commander Steve Parker began to transmit information through the alien communication system. Images and data flowed into the Nightfall's computers. The true nature of the Hegemony Collective was revealed in all its terrible scope. The aliens were not a single species. They were a collective consciousness composed of thousands of absorbed civilizations spanning 50,000 years of galactic conquest. Each species they encountered was given the same choice that humanity had received: surrender and be absorbed into the collective, or be destroyed completely. Most species chose absorption. Their consciousness would be preserved forever as part of the growing collective mind. Their knowledge would be added to the vast library. Their unique perspectives would become part of the alien decision-making process. From the collective's point of view, it was not conquest but salvation. They were preserving the essence of every species they encountered. But something had gone wrong with the human absorption process. Human consciousness patterns were too chaotic and independent to integrate smoothly into the collective mind. Instead of becoming part of the unified whole, the human minds had retained their individual identities and were actively fighting against the alien control systems. We are like a virus in their network, Steve Parker explained. Our thoughts are too random and creative for their ordered system to process. We have been spreading confusion and rebellion throughout their collective consciousness. Alex felt a spark of hope. Can you break free? Not from the inside. But Alex, we have discovered something crucial. The collective's central processing core exists in a pocket dimension that can only be accessed through quantum tunneling technology. If you can get Dr. Chen's weapon specifications to us, we might be able to destroy the core from within. Dan interrupted the conversation. Commander Parker, how many other species are fighting back like humans? More than you might think. Our rebellion has awakened dormant consciousness patterns from dozens of previously absorbed species. The collective is losing control of significant portions of its network. But they are trying to contain the damage by isolating the human section from the rest of the system. Nina monitored the communication links. Captain, the quantum entanglement is becoming unstable. We may be running out of time for this conversation. Steve. Parker's consciousness transmitted one final burst of critical information. Alex, the invasion fleet heading for Earth contains the mobile consciousness of the entire collective. If you can destroy the central core, every hegemony ship in the galaxy will lose its controlling intelligence. But the weapon has to be detonated from inside the pocket dimension, and anyone who does it will be destroyed in the process. The communication link suddenly cut off as alien security systems detected the unauthorized data transmission. Alarms began sounding throughout the structure. The walls around them shifted from transparent to opaque, and Alex realized they were being sealed inside the chamber. Rita, can we fight our way out? Alex asked. Rita checked her weapons and tactical scanner. Negative, Captain. We are surrounded by force fields and defensive systems, but maybe we do not need to fight our way out. Dan had been studying the alien technology around them. Captain, I think I can interface our quantum weapon with their consciousness transfer system. If Commander Parker is right about the pocket dimension, we might be able to send the weapon specifications directly into the collective's core network. Alex understood the implications. That would mean activating our quantum weapon while we are inside the structure. The feedback could destroy us along with everything else in here, including 2 million human minds, Nina pointed out. Alex looked at his crew and realized they were facing the same choice that Steve Parker and the expedition fleet had confronted months ago. Sacrifice themselves to save Earth and possibly free every species that had ever been absorbed by the Hegemony Collective, or try to escape and leave humanity defenseless against the approaching invasion. The decision was easier than he had expected. Dan, prepare the quantum weapon interface. Nina, send a final transmission to Earth explaining what we learned here. Rita, Help me access the consciousness transfer technology. If we are going to do this, we are going to do it right. As alien security forces began cutting through the sealed chamber walls, the crew of the Nightfall prepared to join their friends and comrades in one final battle against an enemy that had conquered the galaxy for 50 millennia. Back on Earth, Dr. Amy Chen received the final transmission from the Nightfall just as the hegemony invasion fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system. The quantum communication burst contained detailed specifications for integrating the experimental weapon with alien consciousness transfer technology. More importantly, it contained intelligence about the true nature of their enemy and a desperate plan for victory that would require sacrifices beyond anything humanity had ever contemplated. President Maria Santos convened an emergency session of the Global Defense Council as reports flooded in from deep space monitoring stations. The alien fleet was massive beyond comprehension, millions of ships approaching Earth in perfect formation. Each vessel radiated energy signatures that dwarfed anything in human technology. The remaining 47 patrol ships and orbital defense platforms would last minutes against such overwhelming force. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the communication screen from Luna Base Alpha. His face showed the strain of months without sleep and the weight of impossible decisions. The alien fleet will reach Earth's orbit in 18 hours. Dr. Chen, do you have any good news about Captain Turner's mission? Amy activated her holographic displays to show the quantum weapon modifications that Turner's team had transmitted. Captain Turner discovered that our missing fleet members are still alive inside the alien collective consciousness. More importantly, they have been fighting a guerrilla war inside the enemy network, and may be able to destroy the collective from within if we can provide the right weapon specifications. General Carlos Martinez studied the technical data. What kind of weapon are we talking about? The quantum tunneling device we developed can be modified to affect consciousness patterns instead of physical matter. If we can interface it with alien neural technology, we might be able to disrupt the collective's control over their entire fleet. President Santos understood the implications immediately. You are talking about a weapon that attacks minds instead of ships. More than that. According to Captain Turner's intelligence, the collective's central consciousness exists in a pocket dimension. If we can access that dimension and detonate our weapon inside it, we could theoretically destroy the controlling intelligence of the entire hegemony empire. Admiral Morrison leaned forward on the screen. What would that require? Amy brought up the most disturbing part of Turner's transmission. Volunteers would need to interface directly with alien neural technology. The process involves connecting human consciousness to the collective network and then detonating the quantum weapon from within the pocket dimension. Everyone connected to the system would be destroyed in the process. The room fell silent as the leadership of humanity processed what they were being asked to consider. A weapon that could save their species, but only at the cost of sacrificing the volunteers who operated it. General Martinez was the first to speak. How many volunteers would we need? The calculations suggest that a minimum of 12 people would be required to maintain stable quantum entanglement with the pocket dimension while the weapon charges. But the more consciousness patterns we can introduce into their network, the better our chances of success. Admiral Morrison stood up on the communication screen. I volunteer to lead the mission. President Santos shook her head. Admiral, we cannot spare our senior command staff. With respect, Madam President, we cannot spare anyone if this plan fails. Earth will be conquered within days. At least this way we have a chance to take the enemy with us. Over the next 6 hours, as the alien fleet continued its approach toward Earth, 12 senior military officers volunteered for the consciousness interface mission. Each volunteer understood that they would not survive the process. Each volunteer also understood that failure meant the end of human civilization. Dr. Chen worked frantically to modify the quantum weapon based on the alien technology specifications that Captain Turner had provided. The device required a massive power source, which they obtained by linking it to the main reactor systems of Luna Base Alpha. If the weapon functioned as designed, it would drain enough energy to power a small city. As the alien fleet entered the outer solar system, the volunteers gathered in the consciousness interface chamber that had been constructed in the deepest levels of Luna Base Alpha. Admiral Morrison led the group, which included General Martinez and 10 other officers who represented the best of human military leadership. The interface process was unlike anything in human experience. Each volunteer wore an alien neural headset connected to quantum field generators that would link their consciousness to the collective network. As the devices activated, their minds would leave their physical bodies and enter the alien pocket dimension, where the final battle would be fought. President Santos delivered a final message to Earth as the interface procedure began. The volunteers, who are about to sacrifice themselves for our species, represent the best of human courage and determination. They go into battle not just for Earth, but for every species that has ever been conquered by the hegemony collective. If they succeed, they will have freed an entire galaxy from 50,000 years of tyranny. The consciousness interface activated precisely as the alien invasion fleet reached Earth's orbit. Admiral Morrison and his volunteers felt their awareness shift from their physical bodies into the strange reality of the collective network. They found themselves in a vast digital space filled with the consciousness patterns of billions of beings from thousands of worlds. In the network, they were reunited with Fleet Commander Steve Parker and the 2 million minds of the missing expedition fleet. The human consciousness patterns had been fighting a continuous battle against alien control systems for months. They had learned to navigate the collective's information structures and had identified the location of the central processing core. Jake Morrison, I never thought I would be so happy to see anyone. Steve Parker's consciousness communicated through the network. Are you ready to finish what we started? Admiral Morrison felt the quantum weapon charging through his connection to Luna Base Alpha. The weapon is armed and ready. Can you guide us to the central core? Follow me. But be warned, the collective knows we are here. They are mobilizing their security systems to stop us. The human consciousness patterns moved through the alien network like a squadron of fighters navigating enemy territory. Around them, the collective's defensive programs tried to isolate and contain their advance. But human creativity and unpredictability proved too chaotic for the ordered alien systems to counter effectively. They reached the central processing core just as the weapon reached full charge. The core appeared as a massive crystalline structure, floating in an impossible space that existed between dimensions. Inside the crystal, they could see the accumulated consciousness of the original hegemony species that had started the collective 50,000 years ago. Admiral Morrison prepared to detonate the quantum weapon. All human units. This is Admiral Morrison. It has been an honor to serve with you, for Earth, for humanity, for freedom. The weapon detonated inside the pocket dimension, with a force that shattered the fundamental structures of the collective consciousness. The explosion propagated instantly through quantum entanglement to every hegemony ship in the galaxy. On Earth, observers watched as millions of alien vessels suddenly went dark and began drifting powerless through space. But the victory came at a terrible cost. Every human consciousness connected to the network, including Admiral Morrison and the entire expedition fleet, was destroyed in the quantum feedback. 2,012,000 souls sacrificed themselves to save their species and liberate the galaxy. President Santos stood before the people of Earth 3 days later to deliver a victory speech that was also a memorial service. They sent thousands of our people into space to face an impossible enemy, and not one returned in body. But their sacrifice accomplished something that will be remembered for all time. They did not just save Earth. They freed every species that had been enslaved by the hegemony for 50 millennia. Captain Alex Turner and his crew were posthumously awarded the highest honors that humanity could bestow. Their final transmission had provided the intelligence that made victory possible. Fleet Commander Steve Parker became a symbol of human resistance against impossible odds. Admiral Morrison was remembered as the leader who chose to sacrifice everything, rather than surrender his species to slavery. In the years that followed, as humanity explored the now empty hegemony ships and made contact with newly liberated alien civilizations, the story of the sacrifice at Vega became legend. They had sent thousands into the void and not one returned, but their courage had broken chains of bondage that stretched across 50,000 years and billions of worlds. The last entry in the official war records simply stated, "Mission accomplished. Earth survives. The galaxy is free." The price of freedom is never forgotten.